Good evening. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Genealogy with Queen. I would like to start by telling a little bit about myself before I just jump into what I'm going to talk about tonight. Tonight, I'm going to actually talk about um, Acadiana and how Acadiana came to be, because I do feel like it is important to know the history of where you came from before you start doing your research in your ancestry. Um, I, my family, both sides of my family, are from South Louisiana, from one of the 22 Acadiana parishes. But there's a smaller subset of those parishes that are really considered Cajun country. Um, so both sides of my family are from the Acadiana parishes in South Louisiana. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and moved with my family to South Louisiana in 1980. I was going on 11 around the time. So moving from up north to down south, naturally, I had the northern accent, and we would get teased mercilessly by the locals for having this northerner's accent. And I guess over time, when you live in a place, you start to assimilate to what your surroundings are. So I guess over time, my language, my dialect started assimilating to what I encountered every day um, with the people surrounding me. My grandmother, um, she spoke the broken French. I just simply call it broken French. I don't call it Cajun French. I simply call it broken French because, much like I do today, they may say a sentence, and out of 8 words, 6 of those words may be in English, and 2 of those words may be in French. And I'm still guilty of doing that today. So I may be talking to you, but I'll insert a French word within an English and all English sentence, because that's what I grew up around. And so it's kind of what I do. And so what I wanted to do tonight, I don't know if it's been done. I haven't looked at anyone else's channels to see what they have done on the genealogy and Cajun genealogy. Um, One of the reasons I felt it was important for me to do this, I graduated from Tulane University, of course. I see the Tulane green wave blow away. I graduated from Tulane University in 2010 with dual degrees in anthropology and sociology. For those that don't understand what anthropology is a four-field subject that includes culture, it includes linguistics, it includes archaeology, and it golly, what's the fourth? Archaeology, culture, forensic anthropology is the fourth. So it's a four-field subject, and you do, as an anthropologist, you do have to learn all four fields. So you don't leave anything out. So sociology, I learned about how macro affects the micro and how micro affects the macro. And so the two kind of went together hand in hand for me. I also completed 2 years of law school. So I am very well educated, well versed, and I have taken classes at Tulane University in Cajun class specifically. My teacher's name was Mr. Arsenault. He was from Lafayette, the Lafayette area, and his surname is one of the original Cajun surnames. Um, I have taken classes also in voodoo, witchcraft, and religion. Again, as I told you all, my parents are from Louisiana, but I was transplanted when I was 10 years old. So, being in college, I still felt it was important for me to learn aspects of the culture that either I didn't fully understand or I didn't know. Um, because in our culture, most things are handed down orally. So in the Cajun culture, and pretty much Creole culture, you have oral stories that are passed down from generation to generation. And as the older generations die out, that's how you started seeing the Cajun dialect and the Cajun language die a slow death. There are attempts being made to preserve the language, but it's kind of so far gone. Um, I'm hoping that they can, but it's really gone. But I love hearing people with the deep Cajun accent speak. I don't have that accent since I was not born or reared here for the first 10 years of my life. I don't have that deep Cajun accent, but some of my family members do. Um, so, what I'd like to talk about tonight, getting those disclosures out of the way, so that everyone knows that I do have an education and a background in what I'm talking about. And I've learned about, the great disbursement, Le Grand Arrangement from Acadiana to it wasn't straight to Louisiana. Some boats went to France. Some boats went to the Caribbean. And by way of France, the Caribbean ended up here in Louisiana. Um, so, first, I'd like to talk to people about what Acadiana is. And I feel like if you get an understanding of what Acadiana is, it will kind of help you on your journey through your genealogy, especially for blacks. Um, and I have to say this, and I don't want it to be a race thing, but it is, unfortunately. When I took my class in Cajun culture, I was the only black in my class. And I pretty much was told by my teacher, as I said, his surname was Arsenault. I was pretty much told by my teacher that there are no black Cajuns. There are none. They don't exist. So there is a racial divide with black Cajuns and white Cajuns because white Cajuns will not acknowledge that black Cajuns exist. Um, so I'm hoping to be able to shed some light on the divide between us culturally and maybe why they feel like black Cajuns don't exist. Um, and maybe in that way be able to help some black Cajuns or mixed Cajuns or Creole Cajuns to be able to move forward in their genealogy quest. So I'll start with Acadiana, and I'm pulling this information from um, Wikipedia. Just reading basically what Acadiana is, and I'll in the description I'll put the link to the Wikipedia article that I am using for this. And again, just to reiterate from the last video, just in case you didn't see the last video, I am currently doing genealogy on my mother's side of the family. I am paying. I went back so far, and then I hit a brick wall. And it was at that point that I decided to pay a professional genealogist to complete my journey for me. And currently, on my mother's family tree, her mother and father's side, I am paying um, Ancestry.com pro genealogist to complete this journey for me. And in doing that, I feel like that's what qualifies me to be able to speak about um, Cajun, the Cajun and the Creole thing, because I have gotten 3 updates from them on my past, my white ancestry, and my people were free people of. I'm saying free people of color, but on my mother's side, I have not done my father's side. This journey with you all, I'm going to attempt to do my father's side myself. But on my mother's side, they were free people of color. But again, her grandparents on one of her parents' side is white. So for us people who are of color, we say of color. However, the um, census records list us either as Greek. I don't know if you all have heard that term, but in your genealogy research here in South Louisiana, sometimes they put your race down as Greek, Gris. Um, Sometimes they listed it as black. Sometimes they listed it as mulatto. So in different census records, or even the same census record from this family living in this house to this family living right next door in the next house, but it's the same family. On this one may be listed as black, and this one may be listed as mulatto, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So it's very hard doing genealogy in Louisiana if you are a person of color within the Acadian parishes. Um, so I'll just go on to the subject that I have at hand. Acadiana um, is pretty much known as French Louisiana, um, and it's known as Cajun country. Uh, it's the official name given to the French Louisiana region that is historically contained that has historically contained much of the state's francophone population. Let me stop right there. Most Cajuns that I know, um, I don't know where they got this from as far as the francophone part. Most Cajuns that I know do not speak francophone French and have never spoken francophone French. They've always spoken a broken French language, and to this day, they continue to speak a broken French language. If you go to Lafayette or Brobridge, um, that's what you'll find, a broken French language. I, because linguistics is one of the 4 fields of anthropology, I was required to learn other languages. So I know Swahili, Kiswahili, and Francophone French, as well as English. And I can tell you, because I learned this in college, that there is no Francophone French that's being spoken out there. Otherwise, what reason would there be to preserve the language if it was the state's francophone population. And that's just me saying that. But if there was a francophone population, there would be no need to preserve this Cajun French because it would be francophone French, which I learned in college. And francophone French is different than the broken French that we speak here in South Louisiana. Um, Many inhabitants of the Cajun country have Acadian ancestry and identify as Cajuns or Creoles. Of the 64 parishes that make up the U.S. state of Louisiana, there are 22 named parishes and other parishes of similar cultural environment that make up this interstate region. Okay, and my family is from Iberville Parish. Um, I live in the New Orleans area. Out here in New Orleans, they say Iberville. In Acadiana, we say Iberville. So that's a big difference that people see. Is like when I'm talking to them and I'll say Iberville, and they'll try to correct me to say Iberville. And it's like, where I'm from is Iberville. And that's the way I'll say it. So let's talk about the etymology of the word Acadian. It reputedly has two origins. Its first recorded appearance dates back to the mid 1950s when a Crowley, Louisiana newspaper, the Crowley Daily Signal, coined the term in reference to Acadia Parish, Louisiana. However, KATC television in Lafayette independently coined Acadiana in the early 1960s, giving it a new, broader meaning and popularized it throughout southern Louisiana. Founded in 1962, KATC was owned by the Acadian Television Corporation. In early 1963, the ABC affiliate received an invoice erroneously addressed to the Acadiana Television Corporation. Someone had typed an extra A at the end of the word Acadian. The station started using it to describe the region covered by its broadcast signal. Today, numerous business, governmental, and nonprofit organizations incorporate Acadiana in their names. For example, the Mall of Acadiana, Acadiana High School, notably KLFY-TV, the regional CBS affiliate, used the term in its very successful Hello News branding campaign as Hello Acadiana. KATC hosts a morning television show, Good Morning Acadiana. And again, the 22 parishes that incorporate the culture of Acadians is known as the Acadiana parishes. Historically part of French Louisiana, present day Acadiana was inhabited by the Attakapas Native Americans at the time of European encounter. After the expulsion of French speaking Acadian refugees from Canada by the victorious British at the end of the Seven Years' War, many Acadians settled in this region. It's not that simple. I'm not going to get into all of it, but after Lagrange derangement from Acadiana, families were put on ships and they were split up. Kids might have been put on one ship. The mother may have been put on a different ship. Father may have been put on another ship. And they were, set sail and ended up in different places. So these families were, for the most part, split up. And coming to Louisiana, they would hear, that a family member may have been in Louisiana. And eventually they would make their way from the Caribbean, Haiti, or France over to Louisiana. So this explanation in Wikipedia is short, it's sweet, it's to the point, but there's a lot that happened in the expulsion of these people from Canada. Um, The Acadians intermarried with other settlers, forming what became known as Cajun culture. Some Acadians married outside of coming to Louisiana, like those who were expelled to Haiti. Some married Haitians. Some had kids with Haitians. So right there is your link to Black Cajuns, because they left Haiti and came to Louisiana, and I believe that that is the link to Black Cajuns coming to be. In 1971, the Louisiana State Legislature officially recognized 22 Louisiana parishes and other parishes of similar cultural environment for their strong French Acadian cultural aspects. House Concurrent Resolution number 496 on June 6, 1971, authored by Carl W. Bauer of St. Mary Parish. It made Heart of Acadiana the official name of the region. The public, however, prefers using Acadiana to refer to the region. The official term appears on regional maps and highway markers. Now I'll talk about the effects of hurricanes on our parishes and our way of life. Um, like much of Louisiana, this area is subject to damaging hurricanes. On October 3rd, 2002, the central Acadiana region suffered a direct hit from Category 1 Hurricane Lily. The hurricane caused most of Acadiana to lose power, and some areas lost phone service. In addition, some high rise buildings in downtown Lafayette had windows broken and the roofs were damaged of many homes throughout the region. The high winds of Lily toppled the tower of KLFY TV 10 onto the station's studio facilities. Only one injury inside the station was reported from the tower's collapse. The eastern Acadiana region was somewhat affected by Hurricane Katrina, which came through August 29, 2005. The Hurricane Katrina, I did live here in the New Orleans area um, in 2005. However, because we thought New Orleans was going to get a direct hit, I evacuated and went home to the Acadiana parishes. And Katrina was so big that um, the not only the effects were felt there, but we were watching fences fly away and telephone poles come down. So going there for Katrina, just I am a testament to how Hurricane Katrina affected the Acadiana parishes because I was there. Um, Although the damage was limited compared to the severe flooding farther east in Greater New Orleans, this area was used by many evacuees when they returned to the region as a last stop of temporary domicile before returning to Greater New Orleans. The Greater Baton Rouge area had already been handling numerous evacuees. Governor Kathleen Blanco made a public request that those returning not try to seek lodging in the capital due to this crisis of overpopulation. Lafayette and several other municipalities set up both public and church-run shelters to handle the influx. The largest of these shelters, run by the Red Cross, was the Lafayette Sports Arena, the Cajun Dome, holding a reported 9,800 people. The Western Acadiana region and East Texas were most affected by Hurricane Rita, which came through on September 24th, 2005. And we were still not allowed to come home to New Orleans during Hurricane Rita. Katrina came through, and Katrina, I'll say, was a wind maker. Um, for my home, I can speak specifically on my home. When Katrina came through, I did come home in between the two storms, even though they weren't allowing people to come home. The National Guard had come out and they were stopping people from going to their homes. They did allow me to go into my home. And Katrina was pretty much a wind maker. She blew the roof off, and I'm calling her a she because that's what she was. She blew the roof off of my home, and sheetrock had come down. But all of my furniture, everything was good. But because I was in my car, I wasn't able to take much with me when I left. Um, Rita came through. Rita was a rainmaker, and Rita came through, and because the roof was already damaged for many people, the scenario I'm talking about happened to many, many people. Um, and Rita came through and rained, rained, and rained, and that's what damaged people's possessions was the rain of Rita. So if you didn't get the flood, in which I didn't because I lived on the West Bank, so I didn't get the flood. But when Rita came through with the rain, she just drenched all your stuff, and so that's what that was. So I'm gonna skip through the rest of the hurricane stuff, um, but I'll go to the geography of Acadiana. And Acadiana consists mainly of low gentle hills in the northern section and dry land prairies with marshes and bayous in the south closer to the Gulf Coast area. Where I'm from, we have lots of bayous, tons of bayous. You may not get phone service, just saying, even in 2023, you may not get phone service. Um, the wetlands increase in frequency in and around the Calcasieu River and Chapalaya Basin and the Mississippi River Delta. The area is cultivated with fields of rice and sugarcane. Acadiana is defined by the Louisiana legislature, refers to the area that stretches just from west of New Orleans to the Texas border along the Gulf of Mexico coast and about 100 miles inland to Marksville. This includes the 22 parishes of Acadia, Ascension, Assumption, Avoyelles, Calcasieu, Cameron, Evangeline, Iberia, Iberville, Jefferson Davis, Lafayette, Lafourche, Pointe St. Charles, St. James, St. John, St. John the Baptist. There's a St. John, but it's not included. St. John the Baptist, St. Landry, St. Martin, St. Mary, Terrebonne, Vermilion, and West Baton Rouge. The total land area of Acadiana is 14,574.105 square miles. That's 37,746.76 square kilometers. If Acadiana was a U.S. state, it would be larger than Maryland. If it were a sovereign state, it would be larger than the Bahamas. Three of the parishes, St. Charles, St. James, and St. John the Baptist, are considered the river parishes and made up the area formerly known as the German Coast because of settlement by German immigrants in the 18th century. Ascension Parish is sometimes included within the river parishes. The river parishes border the first and third largest regions in Louisiana by population, the greater New Orleans area, and the Florida parishes. St. James and Ascension parishes were originally known as the Comte d'Acadie, Acadia County, because of the initial settlement of 18th century exiled Acadians. Forgive me. St. James Parish was known as the first Acadian post, and Ascension Parish was known as the second Acadian post. Ascension Parish sits right next to Iberville Parish, and some of my ancestry leads to Ascension Parish. Um, Collectively, they were known as Les Côtes des Acadians, the Acadian coast. Major cities within these parishes, the largest metropolitan areas in Acadiana are Lafayette, Lake Charles, and Homer Thibodeau. Homer Thibodeau is also the home to the Homer Indians, who are still fighting to get federalized. Just a tidbit of information I'm throwing out there. I did a paper on it my senior year of college. Um, Other cities and towns within Acadiana are Abbeville, Berwick, Brobridge, Broussard, Bunkie, Carencro, Church Point, Crowley, Donaldsonville, Erath, Eunice, Franklin, Gonzales, Guyton, Jeanerette, Jennings, Kaplan, Lutcher, Mamou, Marksville, Maurice, Morgan City, New Iberia, New Roads, Opelousas, Patterson, Plaquemine. Plaquemine is the parish seat of Iberville Parish. Port Allen, Rain, Scott, Simsport, St. Gabriel, St. Martinville, Sulphur, Sunset, Bill Platte, and Youngsville. As for the demographics, at the 2000 U.S. Census, the total population of Acadiana was 1,352,646 residents. At the 2019 American Community Survey, the tabulated population of Acadiana was estimated at 1,490,449. In 2020, the tabulated population of Acadiana's parishes was 1,486,345. Now I'll talk about the Cajun slash Creole ethnicity. Um, Cajuns are the descendants of 18th century Acadian exiles from what are now Canada's maritime provinces, expelled by the British and New Englanders during and after the French and Indian War. See the expulsion of the Acadians. They prevail among the region's visible cultures, but not everyone who lives in Acadiana is ethnically Acadian or speaks Louisiana French. Similarly, not everyone who is culturally Cajun is descended from the Acadian refugees. German and Polish settlers found their way to this area as early as 1721, settling in an area that became known as the German coast. They preceded the Acadians. Acadiana is home to several Native American tribes, including the Chitimacha, the Houma Indians, the Tunica Biloxi, the Attakapas, and the Coshada. Acadiana is also home to other ethnic groups, including Anglo Americans, who came into the region in increasing numbers, beginning notably with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. Since the late 20th century, political refugees from Southeast Asia, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, among others, have brought their families, cultures, and languages to the area and have contributed significantly to its fishing industry. And Vietnam, I'm very good friends with the Vietnamese here, and a lot of them own fishing boats, and that's what they do for a living here in South Louisiana. The region also boasts a large population of Creoles, descendants of the region's original settlers who arrived in Louisiana before and after the arrival of the Acadians. In the broadest sense, the term Creole has been used to denote anyone who is native to Louisiana, regardless of race or ethnic origin. In this sense, Creoles can identify as black, white, and persons of mixed race or origin. I have to stop right there because Creoles, there's a distinct difference between Creoles and Cajuns. Most Creoles, um, the majority of the state of Louisiana, the northern part is comprised of Creoles, and their religious background is of the Catholic or Roman Catholic faith, whereas Cajuns are not. So typically, um, the Creoles, you will find that they are of the Catholic or Roman Catholic faith. Um, I was married to a Creole, and he was Roman Catholic. Um, so that's why I'm interjecting here, because it's saying that anyone who is native to Louisiana. That's not true. Not everyone in Louisiana identifies as Creole or Cajun, and Creole still stems from the background of being mixed with something else. You're going to be mixed with French. You're going to be my son, for instance. Um, as I just said, my ex husband is a Louisiana Creole, but his father has an Italian name. And when we did the DNA test for my son, of course, it came back with some Italian in the background. Um, so Creoles tend to be mixed. Creoles, their color. I'm not going to say they are obsessed with color. I'm only going to speak on the people that I have come across. Um, my ex husband's people are from the Slidell, Macomb, Ponchatoula, Hammond, Covington, Mandeville area. And the Creoles over there, especially the Lacombe area, were about keeping the color in the family. Then this is those Creoles over there. They were about keeping the color. They were more concerned about keeping the color in the family. Whereas with us Cajuns, we were more concerned with keeping the property, the land, the wealth within the family. But they were more concerned about keeping the color. So concerned that they would intermarry, um, just to make sure the color stayed. And that's just speaking from my personal experience. I don't want anyone to be offended by what I'm saying. I'm speaking from my personal experience being married to someone, you know, over a decade and experiencing these things myself. So I don't want to offend anyone, but this is what I saw, and what I experienced, and you know, close relatives, close relatives being married to each other to keep the color in the family. My sister-in-law is very, very, very high yellow. Very high yellow. I'm sorry. I hope you don't see it. Um, but I'll get back to this. I just have to put that in as a side note because it's what I've seen. Um, while many in Acadiana associate Creole specifically with those people descended from the gens de couleur libres, free people of color. Forgive, I have not spoken French. It's been a very long, the Francophone French, in a long time. So excuse me if I mispronounce the things. Um, these people descended from the free people of color. Others cling to the word's original definition. So Creoles of every ethnic background are still present in the region. Many Creoles also identify as Cajuns and vice versa, whereas others reject association with one identity while still claiming the other. The two identities have never been mutually exclusive of one another, and documents written in Acadiana throughout the 19th century often make references to Acadiana's Creole population that are understood to include people of Acadian descent. Prior to the U.S. Civil War, Louisiana Creoles of color were a class of free people who either gained their freedom or were born into free families. The Gens de Couleur Libres played an important role in the history of New Orleans in French Louisiana, both under French and Spanish occupation and after the Louisiana Purchase by the United States. Some Creoles of color were wealthy businessmen, entrepreneurs, clothiers, real estate developers, doctors, and other respected professions. They owned estates and properties in French Louisiana. Being a French and later Spanish colony, Louisiana maintained a three-tiered society that was very similar to other Latin American and Caribbean countries. In the colonial period of French and Spanish rule, men tended to marry later after becoming financially established. Men frequently took Native American women as their wives, and as slaves were imported into the colony, settlers also took African wives. Intermarriage between the different groups of Louisiana created a large multiracial Creole population. As more families settled in Louisiana, young Frenchmen or French Creoles coming from wealthy backgrounds courted mixed race women as their mistresses, known as places, before they officially married. The Gens de Couleur Libres developed formal arrangements for places, which the young women's mothers negotiated. Under the system of passage, the suitor had to be wealthy and prove that he could support the daughter and take care of their children. Often the mothers arranged a kind of dowry or property transfer to their daughters. If the daughter was a slave, she and her children would gain freedom. The fathers often paid for the education of their mixed race children from passage relationships, especially if they were sons, generally sending them to France to be educated. Now, I do have to say at this point, I just got an update on May 1st from my ancestry report, and I can't make the report public, so I can only speak on small items within the research report because it has not been completed yet. Um, I did learn that two of my, I want to say it was my mother's great great grandfather on one side did not marry my mother's great great grandmother until like 20 years after they had their first kid. So that surprised me. But now that I'm reading it here, and I'm reading this here with you all for the first time, so that's why I'm stopping along the way to give some commentary on what I'm reading. Um, Also, on her father's side, there was another grandparent, maybe three times great grandparent, that also waited like 27 years prior to marrying his the woman he had had his first child with 27 years prior. So it's like, okay, your kids are 25, 27, and now you're marrying your mother. But I'm seeing here that that was not uncommon because I just took the paperwork to my mother last night, and she was reading over it. And I was like, isn't that crazy that they would wait 27 years to marry? But now I see why, that they were waiting to establish themselves financially, and become successful in what they were doing before they decided to take on a wife. Um, Many descendants of the free people of color of Louisiana celebrate their culture and heritage through a New Orleans-based Louisiana Creole Research Association, La Creole. The term Creole is not synonymous with free people of color, but many members of La Creole have traced their genealogies through those lines. Today, the multiracial descendants of the French and Spanish colonists, Africans, and other ethnicities are widely known as Louisiana Creoles. Louisiana's Governor Bobby Jindal signed Act 276 on June 14, 2013, creating the license plate I'm Creole, honoring Louisiana Creole's contributions and heritage. And also now you can get on your driver's license the Cajun tag, um, if you wanted to say that you are of Cajun descent. You are allowed now to get that on your driver's license. That bill was also passed. Similarly, the Acadian region is home to many African Americans who have contributed greatly to the region over the centuries. Many primarily descend from those persons brought to the state of Louisiana in various ways during the colonial period to work the area's sugarcane and rice plantations in the southern part of the state and the cotton plantations in the northern part of the state. Between 1723 and 1769, most slaves imported to Louisiana were from modern day Senegal, Mali, and Congo, many thousands being imported to Louisiana from there. A large number of the imported slaves from the Senegambia region were members of the Wolof and Bambara ethnic groups. St. Louis and Goree Island were sites where a great number of slaves destined for Louisiana departed from Africa. Um, where and as I stated, um, on my mother's side, they were free people of color, and where my mother lives present day, they've lived there for many generations. And there's a sugar plantation that's non-functional, like right down the street. Like I can, when I cross the track to go to her house, like sugarcane season is coming up, so you'll start to see all of the sugarcane as it grows, because she's like right down the street from what used to be a functional sugarcane plantation. They still grow the cane, but they don't process the cane. But about a mile from her is a sugarcane processing plant. And when I passed there last night, you never forget the smell. It stinks so bad. Oh my gosh. My grandmother's side, even though I'm going to do this journey with you guys, but I can tell you what I do know about my grandmother's side. They were not free people of color. Um, they worked the plantations. Some of them lived on um, a different number of the plantations in the area. So I expect my genealogy on her side to be a little bit harder, because slave masters kept rolls with only first names. There may not have been a surname there. So I expect that journey to be just a little bit harder for my grandmother's side. But my grandmother on my father's side is um, the last descendant of everyone from her generation and beyond. All of her siblings have passed. Um, and so she's the last one that I'm able to speak to and get oral history information from, um, as far as the plantations, and things of that nature, and working on the plantations goes. I only have her left to be able to get that information from. So every time I go, I try to learn as much as I can. But she's in her 90s and she doesn't remember a whole lot. But what she does remember is very valuable to me. So I've started recording our sessions. And in my last video, I told you guys that sitting down and doing like oral interviews with your older relatives is very important if you're going to do genealogy research here in Louisiana. You want that information, especially if they're the last of a generation. Um, and they're the last person that can give you that information. She has done a DNA test um, for 23andMe, so I do have that information as well. So that's very important step in your genealogy quest. Um, I'll just skip over the rest of that. And I'm going to go to religion because I did talk a little bit about religion and Creoles having a certain religious background, being in um, either Catholic or Roman Catholic. So religiously, Acadiana differs from much of the American South because a majority of its people are Christians of the Roman Catholic tradition, in contrast to the surrounding regions, central and northern Louisiana. Maybe I said that backwards. Maybe I said it backwards. Um, this is correct the way that I'm reading it now, because I think I said it backwards. Um, so it differs from much of American South because a majority of its people are Christians of the Roman Catholic tradition, in contrast to the surrounding regions, for example, central and northern Louisiana, which are part of the largely Protestant Bible Belt. This is largely attributed to the region's French, Spanish, and Caribbean influences. Among the Catholic population of Acadiana, the majority are served by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Lafayette in Louisiana, though some areas in western and eastern Acadiana belong to the Diocese of Lake Charles and the Roman Catholic Diocese of Baton Rouge and Florida parishes. Um, Transportation, I can skip that. The land, um, I can rather skip that. The waterways. Waterways are vital to the commercial and recreational activities of the region, especially for the Homa Indian tribe, the Homa slash Thibodeau Indian tribe, because they still live a largely Native American existence. The hurricanes have come in and washed a lot of their lands away, and it's pushing them further and further inland. So a lot of the trapping and things that they used to do in the past, they're not largely able to rely on that anymore because the waterways have taken their land and forced them more inland. Um, and it's unfortunate, very unfortunate. Seaports, rivers, lakes, bayous, canals, and spillways dot the landscape and served as the primary source of shipping and travel through the early 1930s. The Mississippi River is important to the eastern section, the Atchafalaya River to the middle, the Calcasieu River flowing through Lake Charles enables shipping traffic in the western portion, while the Sabine River forms the western border of both Acadiana and Louisiana. Fresh and saltwater lakes, along with almost the entire Louisiana portion of the Intracoastal Waterway, enable the flow of people and materials. As far as air goes, we have airports in Lafayette, Lake Charles, um, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, And there are a lot of other smaller airports here in here in New Orleans. We have another airport on the lakefront called Billionaire Air, I believe is what it's called, Billionaire Air, where rich people fly into on their private jets. Um, and so that is a short, it's almost an hour. So I'll just say that's a short introduction to Acadiana and what Acadiana is here in Louisiana, what Acadiana means to us here in Louisiana. I don't feel like all of that. It is Wikipedia. So you kind of take what resonates with you because people are freely able to go on there and edit things and change things. So and you can take what you see in there with a grain of salt. Um, because as I said, there were some things I did not agree with that are in there. Um, and yeah, especially I'm going back to um, the francophone thing that they put in there. I feel like that just should not be there because they may have come over speaking francophone French, but because of the education and because they wanted to assimilate, even with the Native Americans here, they wanted to assimilate them into the culture, into their culture, and they weren't allowed to speak their languages in the schools. So the Acadians couldn't go to school and speak French. They had to learn English. And same thing with the Native American. Native Americans, they could not speak their language in school. They had to assimilate to the English language. So I just don't understand how it's saying that it's even a francophone population unless they're, talking about the first wave of population that came in on those, I believe it was 5 ships that came in after the Great Disbursement. Maybe they're talking about back then, but I've been here since 1980, and that francophone population just does not exist. And graduating from Tulane University, we have I want to say they created the school while I was in school, or they may have done it shortly before I started school there. But they created a school for children, to be able to come there and learn the French language. It's the university's way of preserving culture. So they created a school for kids to be able to come and learn about the Creole and the Cajun culture and fully immerse them in that experience. And I applaud my university for that. So with that, I'm going to end this recording with that. And I am going to do a second recording tonight because I had only done one. The second one, I'd like to talk about our language and the linguistics and the fact that we are losing our language, that the language is no longer being used, is no longer being passed down to um, generations as it once was. And as a result, we are definitely losing um, our language. So I'd like to speak a little bit about that and I just feel like it's important to talk about the history of Acadiana, the Acadians, Creole, before getting into the genealogy stuff. We will get into the genealogy stuff, um, but I just felt like I had to preface it with some of this stuff. And with the language, I feel like there are words that I pronounce a certain way that people may question, why is she pronouncing it that way? Um, I have not lived in Iberville Parish since 1990. So when I go home, I'm told I don't have the accent anymore. They're like, oh, you went to a PWI, and you speak like this, and so I'm told when I go home that I don't have the accent anymore. But when I go to other states, like when I go to Texas, and I may say the word baby, and they'll be like, what? Say it again, and I say baby, and they're like, do y'all hear how she say the word baby? And I don't hear it in me because I'm so used to my people telling me I don't have an accent. But when I go other places, they're like, you have an accent. So I feel like this next video on the language of the Acadianas is also an important video to do um, in preparing to go into genealogy and ancestry. I thank you guys so much for watching my video. If you watch my video, I thank you for supporting me. This is a passion of mine, a passion project, and I only decided to do it when I decided to do my genealogy, my own genealogy, and I ran into a brick wall because here in South Louisiana there are a lot of brick walls standing in the way of us being able to effectively do our own family tree. And if I can make things easier for the next person, then that makes me feel good. It's not about, monetization or making money from it. I'm just out to help as many people as I can so that they don't have to spend the thousands of dollars that I've spent to hire a professional to do the work. So hopefully I'm making your journey a little bit easier than my journey was. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me tonight. And check out my next video that I'm going to do on the linguistics of Asian culture. Thanks so much. Have a good night.